Compassion is praised as one of the highest virtues. It moves us to care, to feel another's pain, to act on their behalf. This impulse binds communities and gives us a sense of belonging. But beneath that noble feeling lies something Nietzsche saw clearly, and most of us prefer not to. Compassion carries a shadow, and when it runs unchecked, it does not just help, it hollows us out. Nietzsche's critique is not a footnote in his work, it is central. And his target is not cruelty disguised as kindness, but pity itself. Mitleid, the sharing of suffering. In The Antichrist, he writes plainly, "Pity is the practice of nihilism." That is the load-bearing claim. Pity, in his account, is not virtue wearing a modest face. It is a life-denying instinct dressed up as one, a depressant that lowers the one who feels it and the one who receives it alike. It does not relieve suffering so much as spread it, multiplying a weight that should be lifted, not shared. This is a colder frame than we are used to. We tend to treat compassion as automatically good. The more of it, the better. Nietzsche forces a different question. What does this feeling actually do to a life? His answer is uncomfortable. Pity drains vitality. It fastens the pitier to the suffering of another and calls that bond noble, when in fact it pulls both downward. It preserves weakness that should be confronted and overcome, turning struggle into a shared stalemate. And it flatters the one who pities, who gets to feel moral without doing the harder thing, which is to strengthen, not to sink alongside. In the modern world, this danger is amplified. News, social media, and the constant flow of information expose us to suffering on a global scale. War, poverty, injustice, all delivered in a scroll. The reflexive response is to feel, to signal, to carry. But a feeling that reaches in every direction at once reaches nowhere with force. We become saturated, then numb, then guilty about our numbness. Nietzsche would recognize the shape of this immediately. A culture that worships pity and is slowly exhausted by it. Consider what happens when compassion becomes self-sacrifice. We are told to put others first, always, and to admire those who give everything. But pouring yourself into others without measure is not generosity of spirit. It is a slow leak. Emotional and physical reserves drain, empathy dulls, and what remains is not a stronger person, but a depleted one. We call this burnout. Nietzsche would call it the logical end of a life organized around pity. The self emptied in service of a feeling that never asked whether the emptying was warranted. There is also a dishonest streak in the way we celebrate sacrifice. Stories of those who give everything are admired as the epitome of compassion. But that narrative hides a truth. Self-sacrifice is not always virtuous. It can become a martyr complex, where a person builds their entire sense of worth on their own suffering and the dependence they create in others. The giver needs the receiver to remain needy. The receiver learns to remain in need. This is not liberation. It is a quiet hierarchy, with pity at the top and gratitude enforced from below. Extend his logic to institutions and the picture darkens further. Nietzsche's real charge is that pity practiced at scale preserves what is ripe for destruction. It keeps alive and protects the weak and failing when, in his view, they should be allowed to be overcome. This is civilizational decadence, a whole culture drained by protecting misery instead of enhancing life. He recognized the cost to the strong as well. When we organize our lives around the alleviation of suffering, we risk becoming something we did not intend. Emotionally exhausted, dimmed, disconnected from our own will. This is where Nietzsche's famous warning lands with real force. He who fights with monsters should see to it that he himself does not become a monster. And if you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you. The point is not about compassion directly, but it applies. When you make the struggle against suffering your whole identity, the struggle reshapes you. You start to resemble what you oppose. You stare into misery long enough, and misery takes up residence in you. There's also a quieter cost, the one we rarely name. The pressure to be compassionate can become its own kind of tyranny, a constant vigilance, a sense that we are responsible for every pain we witness. This creates anxiety, then helplessness, then the dull conviction that nothing we do is ever enough. Nietzsche would say this is not a failure of effort, but a failure of the frame itself. A life that measures its worth by how much suffering it absorbs will always come up short, because suffering is not a quantity you can reduce by carrying more of it. So the honest question is not how to be more compassionate. It is what drives our compassion in the first place. Are we helping, or are we seeking validation through helping? Are we using pity as a shield to avoid our own pain? Because tending to others' wounds is easier than sitting with our own. Nietzsche forces these questions on us, not because he is cruel, but because he refuses to let a noble feeling go unexamined. He asks us to confront the shadow, including the parts we would rather keep lit. And here is where his view parts ways with the therapeutic story we tell ourselves. The common remedy for compassion's cost is self-care. Rest, boundaries, be kind to yourself. There is nothing wrong with rest, but Nietzsche pushes harder. The answer is not to pity yourself a little better. Self-preservation, in his frame, is not soft indulgence. It is strength. It is the discipline to refuse to be dragged down by what drags others down. To keep your vitality intact so that you can actually act in the world rather than collapse under its weight. This reframes the whole question. Compassion, on this view, should not be a reflex that overtakes you. It should be a deliberate choice, something you extend from a position of strength, with clear eyes, knowing it costs something, and deciding it is worth paying in that instance. Pity as instinct depletes. Compassion as choice can build, because it comes from a self that is not already hollowed out. There is an edge here that is worth keeping. Nietzsche also wrote that, the higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly. It is a line about greatness and misunderstanding, but it touches the compassion question from the other side. When you refuse to sink with others, when you choose strength over shared decline, you will be misread. People will call it coldness. They will say you do not care. Part of the honest path is accepting that misreading and not letting it drag you back into the reflex. The temptation, Nietzsche warns, is pity as the last sin of the higher person, the final seductive pull to lower yourself because lowering yourself feels moral. Resisting it is not callousness. It is the refusal to mistake shared suffering for real help. So where does this leave us? Not with the comforting line that small acts of kindness ripple outward and save the world. That is a flinch, and it contradicts the argument. It leaves us somewhere harder and clearer. We cannot carry the weight of the world's pain. It is too great for any one person, and pretending otherwise is what hollows us out. The task is to recognize our limits honestly, to preserve our strength, and to extend compassion deliberately rather than reflexively, as a choice made from fullness, not a compulsion driven by fear of our own inadequacy. Compassion, understood this way, is not a burden we are obligated to bear until it breaks us. It is an act of will, exercised by a self strong enough to give without disappearing. We honor others not by sinking with them, but by remaining whole enough to matter. And we honor ourselves by refusing the seductive virtue of self-erasure, by meeting suffering with clear eyes, honest limits, and the strength to stay ourselves in the presence of what would pull us down.